Hey, everybody, and welcome to a remorseful wild ride with Steve-O. There's no other way to say it. I've taken a bunch of L's recently. It's been weighing me down. It says Steve-O's podcast appearances are a mess.
All right, guys. So it looks like Steve-O is admitting to taking L's or massive L's on YouTube recently. Well, not recently, but a couple weeks ago, he did like a podcast run, which he goes to different podcasts from different corners of the internet. The main thing that he went to do there is to promote his new special, The Bucket List, which is it's kind of like a Jackass style video where he does like some of the stunts that he couldn't do in Jackass, which is like Jackass like the .5s or whatever. And Steve-O mainly talks about or mentions some of the people that are pretty big in talking about podcasters, comedians, which is a guy named Too Lazy to Try. I also watch him. He's pretty cool. He's pretty easy to consume, I would say.
There was a, and this particularly hurt because there's a YouTube channel that I watch a lot of. It's called Too Lazy to Try.
Steve-O talks about that video that he made about him.
It says Steve-O's podcast appearances are a mess. And tons of viewership on it.
Mainly, it was like the Danny Brown one, which a lot of people in the comment section, more like in different comment sections, also had problem with Steve-O.
People get turned off if you don't know who the host of the podcast is, which is what happened on Danny Brown's podcast. I kind of felt bad for him because early on he's talking about how big of a fan he is of Steve-O, and he said he watched his new special. He's a fan of Jackass, and he also influenced him to get sober. So he's giving him all this credit and talking about how he's a big fan. And then like 10 to 20 minutes in, Steve-O's like, so what do you do again? Like, what do you do on stage?
I was like, I'm actually enjoying the process of just being in the studio or even being on stage. That created it became almost like therapy for me, man. And
What do you do on stage?
I do music.
You do music?
Mm-hmm.
Nice, man.
Yeah, so some of these podcasts that Steve-O goes on, he doesn't know who the hell he's talking to, which is just kind of rude. But also I feel like it's another example that just shows he's there to promote something. And this podcast, this probably was low on the effectiveness scale for him because a lot of the comments are talking about how they thought Steve-O was being a dick on this podcast and didn't like the way he was acting because obviously he didn't know who Danny Brown was.
He didn't know who really Danny Brown was. And I think that's kind of fair because, I guess maybe not kind of fair because then other people are going to be saying, well, you should have done your research, or like, why are you going to show up to somebody's podcast you don't even know? So I can understand that, right?
What happened there?
I had a couple of offenses on there, and I'm going to completely cop to both of them. First and foremost, I offended everybody, but I don't know if I personally offended Danny Brown himself. But while I was on the podcast, I asked Danny Brown, like, what does he do on stage? He mentioned being on stage. And I was like, oh, yeah, what do you do on stage? And people were just generally outraged that I would be on his show and not know, like, what he does. Mm-hmm. And, I don't really have a defense for that.
He said that he did maybe 40 podcasts, which, look, I don't know. I did not do that research, but I would trust him that he probably did a lot of them, but some of them were probably really small creators, so we didn't really see those.
I mean, I did a bunch of podcasts. It was probably close to 50 different podcasts that I did, and I've never heard of researching the show that you're going on as being a thing. But people are outraged, so obviously I was wrong. I'm not going to defend it.
And after that, he talks about the video game rant that he did.
And while I was on that podcast, I went in on video games in a way that just was super douchey, didn't make even any sense, and was genuinely offensive to everybody who loves video games.
I also did a video about that. So on today's video, we're going to be watching the Steve-O clip of him talking about gaming, gamers, calling them losers.
The results showed that video game violence does not lead to real life violence. Mm-hmm. However, it also concluded that playing video games for hours and hours definitely leads to becoming a complete loser.
Oh man, goddamn it!
I feel like he was talking to me. Steve-O, I'm here for you, bro. Let me know if you need another AA guy. Well, look, I think he even said, yeah, I kind of sounded like an asshole there.
Super douchey.
But yeah, like my criticisms of Steve-O saying that video games are for losers and like instead of playing video games, do something better for society. But it's Steve-O. Like bro, what have you done for society yourself? Like, yeah, like do stunts and fling yourself in a porta potty or eat a goldfish. Like you're just you're for entertainment, other people's entertainment, and whatever people want to do with their time, they're gonna do it. And Steve-O said, yeah, you know what? I do things that just don't necessarily, make impact in the world.
My time. Imagine like just the amount of time I spend scrolling through social media and watching YouTube videos. Like everything that I've ever said negative about video games, saying that it's a waste of time, that it's like people sitting on the sofa and just like. There's a million ways to waste time, and there's a million ways to sit on the sofa, and I'm guilty of all kinds of them.
Let's acknowledge that and say that, hey, thank you, Steve-O, for knowing that, you had this was a learning process for you. I think it's pretty cool for you to do that. Like a lot of people wouldn't do that and acknowledge that, hey, man, all those podcast things that I did, like, damn, like I look pretty bad in it. And big up for Steve-O to admit that, take his L's, and move on. I do like Steve-O, but when I heard him do that rant, I thought it was just like a joke or just like trying to be funny. But a lot of the things that he said in a lot of podcasts did kind of go flat.
Scientific study, the results showed that video game violence does not lead to real life violence.
Mm-hmm.
However, it also concluded that playing video games for hours and hours definitely leads to becoming a complete loser.
Oh man, goddamn it!
Okay, so this whole thing was a shitty joke. So he probably even felt the vibe himself.
I know video games are popular, and I know I'm not making a lot of fans for saying
Yeah, they gonna call
that.
you a boomer. They definitely calling you a boomer right now.
So anyway, guys, I'm gonna end this video here. Let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with Steve-O? Do you still agree that gamers are losers?
Complete loser.
Comment down below there. Also like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Bye-bye.